very quick. I got Nick Saban with a little bit of backtracking at the SEC coaches meetings, just literally like a minute.
Yep.
I have a little Jets scheduling thing.
Okay.
I have 5 worst quarterbacks in the NFL, not including incoming rookies.
Correct.
I have 2 overrated, 2 underrated quarterbacks.
Oh, I got players. I didn't get the quarterback part.
I thought that's what you wrote.
Oh, you wrote it.
Did I?
Yeah, because I wrote the quarterbacks. You wrote players.
Well, what did you write? Didn't you write quarterbacks?
I wrote bottom 5 quarterbacks, and then you took 2 underrated players.
Whoops.
Fuck face.
You wrote players.
Where is he?
That's okay. I'll stick with the quarterbacks.
You wrote players. Yeah, players.
No, you're right. I'll stick with I have 2 overrated quarterbacks, 2 underrated quarterbacks.
I got 1 quarterback in there.
Yeah, that's fine. I can't change it up at this point.
No.
That'd be too much. That's a lot of thinking.
Yeah, I got some NBA.
I got NBA Finals, NBA, got the winner, we got MVP, and then 68s, right? You don't want to do any Yankee stuff, right?
That's it, bro. Yeah, we'll wait a week, and then hopefully we'll run a couple off here because they got a couple hard ones coming. So.
Okay, well then that'll be a good time to transition and see what's going on.
Yeah, where we're at. Yeah.
They're locked in at first place, though.
Oh yeah.
Is it true that the Mets are 9.5 games out in front?
That is. It might be more than that.
Yeah, wow, that's something else. What's up, everybody, and welcome to Bump and Run. I'm Pete Colasano, joined as always by my good friend Scott Bracey. What's going on, dude?
Good afternoon, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing well. We were just talking about the Yankees off air, so you got your Yankee hat on. Things are going well. We don't need to address anything right now. We don't want to address it because we don't want to jinx it, but things are going in a good direction. That's where we'll leave it at for today.
Not a peep out of me. Happy as a clam. Going to the game tomorrow, weather permitting, and let's ride. That's all I got.
Okay. Any golf on the horizon for you?
I got no golf, although I got a nice message from Mr. Dean this morning about his players in the DK.
I saw.
I don't even know what tournament this is, sadly to say.
This is not Jack's tournament? Look into your little mini smart machine.
I've taken a week or 2 off after the PGA Championship.
Did you have a little rough go of it there? Is that why?
No, I just the week after it always sucks because no one goes. They always take a breather, and then this week I really never got. I didn't get on track. This is the Memorial, so yes, you're right. This is Jack's. Yeah, so you know what? Maybe I will tune in a little bit to this one. Yeah. I think so.
Good one to tune into. I know the players look at this one as one of the minor or major minors. Like it's not a major, but it's an important one to get your hands on to be able to say you won Jack's tournament. So we'll look out for that.
Yeah, what this one, Arnold Palmer's and the TPC Sawgrass.
What is it? The Players Championship.
Players Championship. Yeah.
Yeah, that one they look at. So those are like your 3 major minors, I guess you would
And just real quick to accommodate Mr. Ralph, I took your cousin, the Rangers.
Yes, he was asking about it.
A beautiful start to this Eastern Conference Finals, which is tremendous considering they're a very young team. They're about a year or 2 ahead of schedule, according to the experts. But when you have a goalie like Igor and a young, hungry team that's hot right now, man, I tell you, buckle up. You never know what can happen here.
Yeah. Now, in our defense, we did mention, I think it was last week or the week before, we did mention about how playoff hockey is one of the best sporting events to watch. It's better in person, but even on TV, it's a great thing to watch because there's just intensity from beginning to start. And you certainly had that. What was the final score of that game?
6-2.
Woo. So it was 1-1 after was it after the first intermission?
It was 1-1, and then it was 2-2, and then 4 unanswered.
Then the Rangers took off. So the Rangers are looking good. I used to be a diehard Devils fan. I have multiple pictures with myself, the Stanley Cup, and my father and I with the Stanley Cup back in the day when Martin Brodeur was tending the Nets, and they won the Stanley Cup. But since I moved down by Atlantic City, I've lost my kind of
hockey itch.
Full interest. Wasn't the same, and so I'm actually kind of following along with the Rangers here. And like you said, they're a fun team to watch. It's a little bit ahead of schedule, so very cool. So good luck to the Rangers.
Jump on in, babe. The water's fine.
Yeah, listen, I actually tuned in last night. I happened to tune in at the wrong time. I tuned in just as it was the first intermission, and I'm like, nope, I'm going to change the channel. And then I never went back, probably because I fell asleep, but that's besides the point. I really went on ESPN with all intention of watching some playoff hockey because it is fun, man. It definitely is.
Excuse me.
Just following up on a story we talked about last week about how, Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher, well, basically Jimbo Fisher just ate Nick Saban's lunch and sold him out to the devil, calling out allegations of Google this guy and see what he's done. Nick Saban, it all started because Nick Saban kind of was at least intimating, or he said Texas A&M bought their players. Now, with the new NIL deals, name, image, and likeness deals, buying players is kind of not illegal anymore. So in a way, he wasn't saying they were cheating. So when Jimbo Fisher goes bananas and said, don't call me a cheater, don't call me a liar, it seemed a little aggressive, being like, that's not what he called you. And as I said to you, I felt Saban was coming more from an angle of, we should be doing more of this now, because if we're gonna maintain at least on the same playing field, we can't expect players to come here not getting money and they get the opportunity to get money going somewhere else. I still believe that's what he intended. But what was interesting this week is that they had the SEC coaches meetings. I would have done anything to been at this meeting because you're getting all the head coaches in one room at the same time. So just to see like Jimbo walk in the room with Nick Saban and either what the looks are, what ends up being said, and we'll never know. The commissioner of the SEC basically slapped everyone's wrist and said, we don't attack each other. We dominate everybody else. We don't try to, outmatch each other in this conference. In fact, you watch Dan Patrick. Dan Patrick flat out said that Lane Kiffin told him they had to cancel.
Come on.
Yeah, come on. Wasn't allowed to come on. I think the guy who runs the SEC, his last name is Sankey.
Sankey,
yeah. He said, yep, we're going to nip this shit in the bud right now. Frankly, it's the right thing to do by Sankey. It sucks for us because we want to hear what these guys have to say. We love to hear the battles. Would have loved to have heard what Lane Kiffin had to say, because Lane Kiffin, frankly, is one of the guys that's kind of, I don't want to say full-blown anti-NIL, but he has said multiple times, like, we got to figure out some way to control this better because it's out of control. And I wanted to say one thing about NIL, and I thought there's a way that this could be better than schools paying players. And here's why. Theoretically speaking, if you look at like the NFL or any professional sport, you get like a first-round draft pick, that kid's going to play. Why? Because you're paying him a shitload of money. You're not going to sit a first-round player for long. You know what I'm saying? You're paying him a lot of money. You're going to find out if that kid's going to play because you're the one paying him. Theoretically, and I'll explain why I say theoretically, it could be interesting with college because, like, let's go back, when Kyler Murray was at Oklahoma. If Kyler Murray was getting a $1 million, $2 million deal from some, whether it be a shoe company, a local car dealership, or whatever the case may be, that falls under no obligation of the school as far as like him getting playing time. Because as a coach, I go, I don't give a shit what you get from anybody.
Right. This
is my team. I run this team. You suck, or you're playing like shit, or your attitude sucks, or you're out of pocket.
I'm not responsible for the car dealership paying you any money. I don't care.
That's your problem and their problem. That's not my problem. Now, the real world, we know that like that car dealership probably is a huge donator, of money to the school, booster, all that kind of stuff. So some pressure could be brought, no doubt about it. But in theory, it could be, it could be a good thing. Not a good thing, but it could be better than if the school, because they were talking originally before the NIL stuff came up about schools paying the players. And that's where it was like, well, some schools can pay and some schools lose money on sports. Yeah. How do you justify that?
Right.
So frankly, this might be a more fair way of doing it. They definitely, they're what the NCAA should do is they need and some of what we've talked about is some of the transfer rules need to change. And maybe you can only transfer once. and if you transfer a second time, you lose some eligibility or something like that, then that might stop some of the just constant free agency that goes on, which is just, it's insane. But it is interesting that Nick Saban kind of backtracked a little on. He tried to say, like, well, it's not what I was saying. I wasn't saying he did anything illegal. I wasn't saying anything directly about him personally, but it's kind of like like he tried to backpedal, and it was like, it was kind of not an apology, but pulling it back a little bit.
He might have pulled a hamstring backpedal in there.
Yeah. You don't want that kind of heat. Plus, let's be honest, Texas A&M has had some good recruiting classes, and this year they had the top recruiting class. So, You're not trying to add any bulletin board material to any of your games coming up anyway. So there's that. I just thought I would start off with that because I just
I hear you.
So something has come up over the last couple of weeks that I keep hearing about, and I'm a Jets fan, and I often get people saying, well, you're biased because you're Jets. I think my opinions, there's opinions and then there's what I want. And when I give you my opinions of what I'm seeing, I try to keep the bias side out of it. And then what I want is obviously for the Jets to win the fucking Super Bowl this year. Like, there's no denying that that's what I want. So I'm going to give you what I'm going to call here one of my unbiased opinions. There's been a lot of talk over the last couple of weeks since the schedule came out, and it was on a week that we didn't have the podcast, that the Jets schedule, and frankly for the third year in a row, is like ridiculously front-loaded, and they're probably, at least if you were to go to Vegas right now and try to place a bet on the first 9 games of the Jets season, they're probably an underdog in every one of those games. And I hear people saying, and I just want to be perfectly clear when I say this, I do not hear this coming from the Jets. So this is not like the Jets are griping about this. But I hear a lot of people saying it just seems unfair that once again the Jets, a young, inexperienced, had a poor season last year, and it seems like they're just getting hammered with the schedule in the beginning of the season. Now, some people might say to me, like, do you agree? And I say, no. Here's what you don't hear. Do you know if Buffalo's schedule is front-loaded with lots of tough teams? Do you hear anything about that? Is Tampa's? How about the Rams? Do you know if the Rams schedule is front-loaded? Green Bay, do you know if it's front-loaded? No. You know why? Because they're the good teams, and they don't look at it and say, oh, shit, our schedule is front-loaded with a lot of really good teams. I don't want to hear it. Like, I don't want to hear for the last, what have we been talking for 4 months since free agency started, that the Jets have kind of like really made some good decisions and beefed up this team, the offensive line through the draft. They brought in, defensive backs, safeties, wide receivers, all this kind of stuff. We bring in 2 tight ends. We really upgraded everything. Everything's just upgraded. And then we're going to complain that the schedule's hard? It's the freaking NFL. It's the goddamn NFL. As soon as you say the schedule's too hard, what you're saying is you're not good enough. So I just want to put this idea that somehow the schedule's too tough. You got to put that to bed, dude. Was Cincinnati saying that last year? They were only like a 4 or 5 win team the year before. Like, you can't go into it already saying the schedule is too tough and unfair.
Yeah, you make an excuse before the season even starts.
It's not even, it is an excuse, but it's also basically an admission that you're not good enough. And you can't on one hand say we're so improved, we've upgraded so much in our talent, we believe. Now, again, the Jets are not the ones that are complaining about the schedule. And you can go look at it, dude. It is a pretty tough schedule. Don't get me wrong.
I'm going there now, Coach.
Yeah, they play first 3 games of the season. They play the NFC North. So you got Baltimore week 1, Browns, then Steelers. So like 3 in a row. I actually think if they are as improved as they think they are, I could see them winning 2 out of 3 right there.
Jets open up Ravens.
Why don't you read off the first? I think it's 9 games.
9-11, Baltimore home loss. At Cleveland, depending on quarterback, I don't know. Home versus Bengals loss. At Pittsburgh, don't know. Home Dolphins, don't know. At Green Bay loss. At Denver loss. New England home, I don't know. Buffalo, yeah, wow. So your first 9 games, and you have a Week 10 bye.
And then you got one more.
And then you got at New England. And then Chicago home. That's a win.
Then it opens up and gets a little easier.
At Vikings, at Bills.
Well, your division is tough.
Your last 4, Detroit, Jacksonville, Seattle, Miami.
I'm just saying,
Depending where Miami is.
even Vikings. I mean, that's not it. My point is, I don't care.
Oh, you gotta love your December 22nd primetime game.
What's that?
Finally.
What is it?
Jets, Jaguars, 8:15. So that's
they'll
probably a
probably lose
Thursday
out.
nighter, right?
You can't say you're an improved team, you're an improved organization, and like automatically call for losses. Again, the Jets are not the ones saying this. I want to be clear. It's either Jets fans or analysts. Oh, you can't. Again, you don't hear this coming from Baltimore. You don't hear Baltimore saying, "Oh, Jesus, our schedule's so front." Nobody cares. This is the NFL. It's every game is tough, even against shit teams. Look at the Detroit Lions last year. They won 2 games, but they gave 12 games. They made other teams shit their pants. You can't mail in anything. The Jets almost beat Tampa. So like you can't look at any game and be like, we can win. Well, we'll win this one. We can't win that one. That's ridiculous. Even the Denver game, like you can't look at it. It's first, a new starting quarterback. Like why you're not going to give it up. But just to say, like, wow, it was tough. No shit, it's tough. They're all tough. Like, come on.
I mean, just look at your own team.
How many easy games? I mean, you don't play in the SEC. How many easy games you think you're going to have?
Look at your own team, Coach. You beat the Bengals and the Titans.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
basically, we're about 30 seconds away from beating Tampa.
Yeah.
So, like, for people who say,
"Oh boy,
what's the matter?"
It's quite dark out there.
Yeah, there's supposed to be some thunderstorms rolling in.
Boy.
For people who say, "Oh, it's almost unfair." No, then you're admitting you're not good enough. So then you're saying you're still only a 6-win team. I mean, we talked about it before the schedule ever came out that this should be, if it was 7 wins, I think I'd be a little disappointed. 8-9 is where I think they should be, and I stand by that, regardless of how so-called difficult the schedule is. You got to win games. What are we talking about? Why improve your team if you're not expecting to win more games?
You crybaby Jet fans.
It's just ridiculous. It's embarrassing, frankly. You just don't. I mean, it's just, to me, it's silly. Go win the games. The Cincinnati Bengals I think they were a 4-win team. Maybe they had 5. I don't even think they had 5 the year before. And they just went to the Super Bowl. I don't want to hear it. They play in the AFC North.
Niners did a couple years ago, dude. It's so easy to do it now. Shut up.
It's not that it's easy. It's just like this is the deal. You know what I'm saying?
Not easy, but it's more.
No, it's not easy for anybody though. That's kind of my point. I mean, you can look at maybe you can look at Green Bay and say, well, they got it easier, but still,
Well, and how many times have they shit their pants? So I mean,
exactly. So you don't get to do this. You can complain about it. Or you can say, well, look at the Raiders who have loaded up, and now they have like by far the toughest division in the goddamn world. So
Well, that's the first thing that came to mind too. Like, you're lucky you're in the division you're in. It could get a lot worse than that anyway.
Yeah.
So,
frankly, you should be better than New England this year if you upgraded as much as you say. If you upgraded as much as you say you have, and if your quarterback is as good as you're saying he is, then you should be better than New England this year. Zach Wilson should be better than Mac Jones. I'm sorry.
Agreed.
He's more athletic. He's got a better arm. He's got a better. He throws a better ball with more accuracy, more arm angles. Like, come on. So. You got better weapons. Offensively, you're light years ahead of New England. Now, defensively, they might be a little bit better than you, but then you should be able to score on them. Like you got better weapons on offense. I don't want to hear that stuff. I just don't want to hear, oh, Miami, they loaded up. So what? Then you stink. Then all these moves you say change the direction of the organization. They didn't do that. You're still below average. You still stink. Because then what's going to change the next year? Buffalo's still going to be good. Miami's only going to be better. New England's not going to get worse. Like, I don't want to hear that shit. I don't, and frankly, Jets fans shouldn't stand for it. If you're the one saying it, you shouldn't be saying it. And if you're listening, you should say, fuck that. I don't want to hear this, it's a tough schedule. No shit.
You ever see Big Daddy?
Who's Big Daddy?
With Adam Sandler?
Yeah.
Well, he's like, the goddamn Jets. That's all I'm thinking about right now. The goddamn Jets.
I just don't like the excuse making. I don't like the acceptance of mediocrity. Like, I just don't like it. I just think that's shitty. I don't want to hear that. You don't hear good teams talking about how difficult their schedule is. Your schedule certainly isn't more difficult than anybody that's playing in the AFC West. So,
ladies and gentlemen, June 2nd, 350, and my boy is already pissing and moaning about the Jets fans. The Jets.
He
might be already looking forward to the draft.
I'm pissed about the Jets fans or any of these critics who are talking about like, wow, it's a tough schedule. Fuck off. No. Everyone has a tough schedule, dude. The Rams had a tough schedule last year. You want to be the Rams last year? You want to go back and look at that schedule? That was a fun schedule. They won a goddamn Super Bowl. Be great, or just admit otherwise you're just saying you suck. And I don't want them to suck. It's like you're already planting the seed. Like, oh,
that's what
it's going to be another tough one.
Right there.
Fuck off. Again, this is not happening in-house. They're not saying this from the Jets organization. But I don't want to hear that stuff. I don't want to hear it because everybody has a tough schedule. This is not college football where Ohio State basically has two difficult games every year. You know, Michigan and either Wisconsin or Iowa, like that, and everybody else is a mail-in job. No, this is the NFL. All the games are hard. Okay, even the easy ones are hard. Okay, so I don't want to hear that shit. They're hard for everybody. 2 years ago, the Jets beat the Rams. A year later, the Rams win the Super Bowl. Like, I don't want to hear it. It's just nonsense.
Yep,
even if it's true, you can't talk like that because what you're saying is we're not good.
But it's a lot better that's not coming from in-house. So after that,
of course not. Well, I shouldn't say. I was about to say it never would, but it does sometimes. But yeah, no, I like what I hear from the Jets, and I like what I'm seeing and hearing from OTAs and all that kind of stuff. And that's talk for another day. But it's all tough, man. I don't want to hear this. It's tough. It's a tough schedule. No fucking shit. You think that you're like, oh, the back end looks easy. It's not. You know, it's not, and we'll talk.
Jaguars will be 11-6.
Yeah. I mean, they got the number one pick, and they loaded up with. They fixed their offensive line. They got some weapons. Like, what the hell? You think Trevor Lawrence isn't going to be better this year? Of course, he's going to be better this year. Like, you think that's a mail-in game? They're all hard. They're all difficult, dude. Only the Bears stink. So that's my thing with the Jets. Hey, let's talk about you. You had this idea, and I loved it. Because it looks like the opposite end of it. And it's always fun to kind of be a pessimist. 5 worst quarterbacks in the NFL. I started with the 5th worst and went down to
So did I, my friend.
How about that? Why don't you start us off at number 5?
I'm going to keep it close to home, and I'm going Daniel Jones, the New York Football Giants.
I'm with you on that one. That's my number 5 as well.
The New York Giants declined his option. He's never healthy. They have a new staff, a new line, and some weapons around them. And if Saquon can stay healthy, we'll see what he's got. But it doesn't look promising.
Yeah, he's in Sam Darnold's shoes 2 years ago with the Jets where it's like, you got to show me something. And you see glimpses. I've made I don't know if the word is excuses, but I've kind of made excuses for Daniel Jones because it has been a little unfair.
Yeah.
Because the team stinks. They got one of the worst offensive lines. Everybody's always banged up. Saquon's always banged up. He's always banged up. But sometimes you just, like, you got to fight through that shit. And great quarterbacks, great players make shit happen anyway. So, listen, this is certainly a make or break year for him. If he has a breakout season, then things can change. But as things stand right now, yeah, he's my number 5.
Division isn't phenomenal.
Nope.
There's a couple solid teams. I think
and
Eagles
they
maybe
some moves, solidify the offensive line.
Yeah. I think Philly took a step up. I think maybe Dallas took a step back. I think the Commanders are
kind of the same.
They're just the same, mediocre at best. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Number 4, you just mentioned him, Sam Darnold for me.
Okay.
Second year with the second team. A lot of pressure on the organization. Matt Rule, we've mentioned it 100 times already this year. Their defense is ready to go. I think the defense is almost ready to be top tier. I just don't know about their offense.
There are some weapons there on offense too.
Christian McCaffrey's a big key there. If he stays healthy, I think it could help him out. And I don't know if he might have some competition. We don't know before the season starts.
Yeah, I don't know if he has it in the beginning of the season, but it'll certainly be there as the season goes on, especially if he's doing poorly. Got off to a really good start last year. Got a little banged up. And once again, I was a big Sam Darnold defender. If you're not able to play, dude, and this is what happened with the Jets, you get banged up. when you're reckless, this is what happens, and that's a problem. So my number 4 is I'll call it like a slash here. Drew Lock and who's the other one that might start for Seattle? They're kind of not sure.
It's not Geno Smith, is it?
Geno Smith, yeah. Like it should be Drew Lock, but if it's Geno Smith, he's in the same goddamn slot. And Drew Lock is the real shame of it because physically, I mean, he's as gifted as there is someone in the NFL. He has an absolute hose for an arm. He's a big kid. He's a thick kid. He's really friggin' athletic, pretty goddamn smart. There's just something, and a lot of times you can't just put your finger on it. I don't know if it's an intensity level, a level focus level, a competitive edge. I can't tell you what it is. We're gonna find out real soon because it's interesting to see how will Drew Lock do with Seattle, but it's also how will Russell Wilson do with Denver. And I may get into that a little bit later, but if Russell Wilson isn't lighting shit up with Denver, then Drew Lock maybe gets a little bit of a break. But for me, I look around the league and I'm like, you'd be hard pressed to find another team that like Drew Lock would probably start on. So he's my number 4.
Number 3 for me, I got our boy Trey Lance.
Ooh, okay.
Second-year quarterback, hasn't played in basically 2 years. Big shoes to fill. Jimmy G's gotten a Super Bowl and gotten an NFC Championship game. Great roster. You know my issues with Kyle Shanahan.
I do. Overrated.
So I think, well, this is part of it, I think. I think we're going to find out.
I think
you can shut me up or prove me right.
Well, we don't know that, right? We don't even know if it's definitely going to be Trey at this point. We kind of think it will be, but we don't even know yet.
I would go 80-20.
You think so?
Yeah.
My number 3 is Marcus Mariota. Super nice guy. Okay, so this is nothing personal. But let's be honest. When he was a starter, he was bottom 3rd statistically. They were mediocre to worse than that. That's why he became pretty much a career backup at that point. Think about this. You were like the number 1 or number 2 pick in the draft, and nobody else after your first team. Like even Jameis has another shot. Drew Lock's got another shot. Sam Darnold gets another shot. Like almost everybody who was drafted really high gets a second chance on a different team at a different place. Marcus Mariota was given up on pretty quick. And what that says to me is that the rest of the league looked at him and was like, nope, we were wrong about this one. Like nobody cares. So to me, he's a backup. He's obviously a bridge quarterback with Atlanta right now. They don't really they've lost a number of weapons over the last 2-3 years. So there's not a lot that he'll be throwing to. So that's my number 3, Marcus Mariota.
Number 2, you mentioned him, Drew Lock.
Wow, you were even harsher on than I was.
Traded for Wilson. Has a familiar tight end in Noah Fant.
I have to laugh, though. You get, as soon as a guy leaves the Broncos, you just fucking run him over with a tractor trailer. You were defending him last year.
Well, listen, I think – well, you traded for a reason. You traded for a reason. No, I mean, I don't know.
Absolutely. No, I love it. You're gone. Fuck you.
As a familiar tight end – listen, I'm rooting for him like you do with Sam. I'm rooting for him,
sure.
But I just don't know if it's in the cards.
Yeah.
Lockett and DK, he's got some weapons on the outside. Another guy that may have a quarterback competition before the season starts. You know, they're talking about maybe Baker there, or who knows if something gets crazy with Jimmy G or whatever. But tough division. You know, they're easily the worst team in that division, so I don't think that helps them out at all, too. So that's what this goes into the factoring.
You just made a great point, though.
Oh, thanks.
They do have some weapons there, dude. Mm-hmm. Like some real serious weapons.
They drafted a running back.
They beefed up the offensive line a little bit too. This could be actually a great spot for him because nothing is expected. People aren't even sure if he's going to start.
Yeah. But
certainly nothing is expected. And if he were to even show out just a little, like let's say Seattle was able to be like a 500 team. I can't imagine they will. Yeah. But imagine they were a 500 team and he was the starter for the whole season. That actually would look very good for him. Yeah,
agreed.
But I'm with you. I have him pretty low there. My number 2 was one of your guys, Sam Darnold.
Right back at you.
Yeah, I know. Reality's a bitch. Yeah. Listen. It is what it is, man. What you see is what you see. Like you just can't keep going with the what's around him. Sam's reckless. Sam with his body. Sam's reckless with the ball. Sam's reckless with his throws. It's just funny to me, man. There is this like invisible ceiling on every player that we don't know where it is until they start playing in the NFL. You think about it. There's a quarterback in the NFL right now that's probably getting more heat than anybody that's on this list, and that's Baker Mayfield. He's getting shit on by his own organization that drafted him number 1 overall, and nobody else wants to touch him with a 10-foot pole. The reality is, if you look at that draft, Baker's the 3rd best quarterback. At worst, he's the 3rd best quarterback that was taken. He has been a productive quarterback.
Definitely.
Sam Darnold has been bad, and Josh Rosen isn't even – I don't even know if he's still in the league anymore. He might be playing in the USFL. So we could say what you want about Baker, and I get on Baker all the time. Sam has been a real disappointment. I just think there's a ceiling on everybody. We don't know where it is until they fucking hit it, and it is what it is. You know, Tom Brady's ceiling was the fucking moon, and Sam Darnold's ceiling was about 8 feet off the ground. I mean, it just is what it is. What you see is what you get. He's had multiple opportunities on multiple teams. You can't even talk about the weapons anymore. So, yeah. It doesn't. I take no pleasure in that putting him in.
Yeah.
So
sounds familiar.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. I'll bet a lot of money that we have the same number 1 guy.
We got this one right.
I got Justin Fields.
Me too.
Buckeyes own. Never a fan. Neither one of us. I don't want to speak for you, but I know I could read a room. Can't read a defense. We talked about that. Draft time and watching a full year of it. Bad roster. As you just mentioned before about going to the Jets, that is an absolute bad roster, bad line, bad weapons. Their number 1 receiver is now gone. And they have a defensive head coach. I don't know what their offensive staff looks like, but I'm going to go on a limb and say not too confidently that it's going to help Fields out in year number 2.
Dude, that was as complete a description as you could possibly say. I mean, he just has he struggles like a son of a bitch to get off his first read. It's like he may even know where to go, but it's just taking too long for him to find it. And then he ends up getting lit up like a Christmas tree. Now, just for clarification, when I say he's taking too long, I mean it might take him an extra half a second, okay? Or God forbid it's 1 full second to like get to where everyone else is getting in half the time, meaning like quarter of a second. That's all the difference in the world. That's how hard this position is. Again, we're not trying to trash the kid. It's hard shit, dude. These guys are all friggin' talented. Physically, there's nothing wrong physically with Justin Fields. Strong arm, super athletic, big, strong body. He clearly works hard. I've heard anything like that. But the proof is in the pudding. When you watch film, when you watch him play, if his number 1 guy is open, he's good to go, dude. He will hit it. And if you scheme something where you can kind of give him a heads up, listen, if you see this defense, this is the guy that's going to come open, he's going to be just fine. And if you give him a nice crease up the middle to take off, dude, look out. I mean, super athletic, right? But I'm sorry. I don't care who it is, whether it's Chris Sims, who I agree with often, or anybody else. I'm telling you what I see. I'm telling you what the problem is. And none of that has changed over what I saw over the last season. So, and then everything else you said, there are no weapons. It's a bad offensive line. You got a defensive head coach. Regardless, it's a new head coach, which means new offensive coordinator first year. I can't imagine this is going to be like, again, if he has this moderately productive season, then that's going to be a total success for him. But I just don't see it, dude. I just don't see it. There are certain things in this league you have to be able to do, and he just doesn't do them well. He just doesn't do them well. It is what it is. So, yeah, I got Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, Marcus Mariota, Sam Darnold, and Justin Fields is my 5. Who are yours again?
Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold, Trey Lance, Drew Lock, Justin Fields.
Very nice. Okay. So last week we did 2 overrated and 2 underrated coaches. This week we'll do 2 overrated and 2 underrated players. How about that, right? And because I'm like a quarterbacks guy, I kept my list actually to quarterbacks. I always have fun with this. So let's start with
you start us off, Coach.
We'll start with overrated. Okay, my first overrated player. Now I'm gonna catch some heat for these, but it's no fun telling you that like a bad player is overrated. They're not overrated. They're kind of bad. So these are going to be good players, and you're going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? But I'll explain. My number one overrated player is Kyler Murray. Again, it's not that he's a bad player. I just don't think he's a superstar. I'm not convinced he is a Super Bowl quarterback yet. I think there is still room for that. Like where I say like Lamar Jackson is not a Super Bowl quarterback. I don't think you're ever going to win less than 10 games, but I don't think you're going to win a Super Bowl. I think there's a cap on him. I'm not ready to say that quite yet. I don't think he's a Super Bowl quarterback because to me, maybe because of his size, maybe because of his demeanor, maybe because of his attitude, as the season goes on, he tends to his effectiveness seems to come down. Like he doesn't seem to be like in the beginning of the season, he's running all over the place. He's making crazy throws. He's doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And by the end of the season, he's throwing for like 150 yards, getting sacked 6 times. And that's happened 3 years in a row. Now, is that Kyler? Is that the head coach? The offensive scheme? I don't know. I can only judge what I see. And right now, for me, I'm looking at Kyler Murray and I'm saying he's overrated. Why? Because I'm getting this like he's a top 5 quarterback talk. And I'm sorry. You can't miss the playoffs most year. And then when you do make the playoffs, you go banged out in the first round. And you're going to tell me he's one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. No, I'm sorry. I'm not going to listen to that shit. So for me, Kyler Murray's one of the most overrated players.
Would you take him or Lamar right now?
I actually like him better as a passer, obviously, than Lamar Jackson. But I think I would probably take Lamar Jackson because I think he's more consistent. I
would too.
I think what Lamar Jackson is, I can count on a weekly basis, whether it's week 1 or week 17.
And Lamar, for some reason, and I know this has nothing to do with talent on the field, but Lamar seems so likable, and Kyler just rubs me the wrong way. It's just something.
I think I agree with you. And what I hear sometimes, not all the time, sometimes, is he's kind of like a locker room divider. There are some guys that do like him, and there's some guys that he just rubs the wrong way. And I think it's that kind of cocky, arrogant way about him. And this offseason, him fighting about his contract negotiation, that didn't help anything.
Taking all the stuff off Twitter, being a crybaby about it.
Because you think you're just doing that to the organization, but there are guys in that team that look at that and are like, you're a dick.
And I go back to when he was coming out of school, and he was on Dan Patrick's Super Bowl week, and Dan asked him the question, as good as an interview as he is, he's like, football or baseball? He goes, because I'm here and maybe football's not dead yet. And he froze, looked at his dad for an answer, handled it the wrong way, like just come up like the Bull Durham. I'm just here to pop up this product, like whatever. It was so awkward and weird, man. I just never got over that. And now watching what he's doing 3 years later,
you start to wonder whether he loves football or he just loves the football money. Because that was really the talk coming out of college, right? You can go play baseball, make $1 million as a signing bonus, but you might not make it to the major leagues for 5 years if you do. Or you can come right out and make $8 million first year as a quarterback.
Or he just loves the football rah-rah thing, and that's some guys do like that. Yeah. Manziel.
He just has this thing about him where he looks like he's hiding something. Like what you're saying about that Dan Patrick, like there's something he's got, but he doesn't want to cough it up. And sometimes it comes across as like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah.
Like, what is there an ulterior motive to what he's doing? So, and then the reality is his seasons, the last quarter of each season that he's played the last 3 years has been shit. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hear he's
throwing
like
the ball
quarterback when he shits the bed
left-handed and doing all kinds of stupid shit.
And that's the most important time in a season, not the least important. That's when you should shine the most. That's when you have to step up the most. That's when you have to be the strongest leader, not the least. So anyway, that's my number one, overrated.
Number one for me, Aaron Rodgers.
Wow. I can make an argument that he's underrated.
1 Super Bowl win, 1 Super Bowl appearance. Brady equaled that in 1 year in the NFC.
Correct.
He's 11-10 in the playoffs. He's 1-4 in NFC Championship games. He's had home field quite a bunch, including last year in the snow against a warm-weathered San Francisco 49er team, and I believe scored 1 touchdown.
Correct.
This has happened year in, year out. I know your issues. Anyone that listens to this program knows your issues with Aaron Rodgers. So I honestly thought you were going to come out of the gate with this. I'm shocked that I beat you there. Listen, I feel like when you got that kind of because how many times Chris Sims says all the time, he's the best quarterback I've ever seen play. Well, he's
maybe right.
Yeah. He's only got one ring for it.
True.
So
I would agree if you. I would agree with you. I would agree with you. I would agree with you if it was only about the playoffs. Like, he is an overrated playoff quarterback, and I think that's his own fault. Like, I don't know if he tightens up or, there's an argument to be made that he makes so few mistakes that come playoff time, you got to be a little more balls to the wall, like take some chances, take some shots. You can't just play it close to the vest in a playoff. You're playing the best teams. You have to take more chances. I think he doesn't like to take those kind of risks in game. And in playoffs, it doesn't cost him in a regular season. In fact, that's why I would say I think for a regular season quarterback, he's probably underrated. Because imagine if you took him off that team. Like, I don't think they're even a 500 football team. And they're a pretty solid football team.
Yeah.
Like, the rest of that team is pretty solid, So, but yeah, as a playoff quarterback, you just rifled off all the numbers. That's a bad look, man. Mm-hmm. It's a bad look to also in the same breath say you're one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. I'm sorry, but no. Like, you don't get on that list when you have like a sub 500 playoff record, and he's on the brink of doing that because you only get one loss every season in the playoffs.
Yeah,
you can't get multiple losses. You can get multiple wins, but you can't get multiple losses.
I mean, last week, Coach, you brought up Dan Marino.
Yeah.
You don't think Dan Marino would give his fucking left arm to have a team like the Packers and play more opportunities in that?
Oh my God! And he was as competitive as they came. He was as much of a risk taker as there was. Yeah, I mean, sure. So I hear what you're saying. As far as playoffs go, he's absolutely overrated because he just tightens up too much.
And listen, an
asshole theory.
And what's the name of the game?
Got to win the game.
To win, be clutch in the playoffs to get the Super Bowl.
Yeah, you got to win the game. End of story. So yeah. You can't tell me if you put it in the framework of you're one of the best quarterbacks of all time, and then you tell me you got a 500 playoff record. Yeah, and you're 1-4 in NFC Championship games. Yeah, that's hard to do, and most of those were at home. So yeah, you make a good argument there. My number 2. This is going to rub you the wrong way. My number 2 is Russell Wilson. And the funny thing about this is I'm a Russell Wilson guy. I'm a huge Russell Wilson fan. I'm so fascinated now. I'm really starting to look because it's always been, for the last couple of years, it's like, man, this Broncos team is super loaded. They just don't have a quarterback. I've made that argument, right?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. What are you saying? What are you saying?
On this very podcast, I've made the argument that, like, dude, they're loaded. They're just without a quarterback. I asked you this question either last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever the hell it was. I said, are you sure that Russell Wilson's the guy that puts you over the edge? Like, not just a 500 team or just above you're sure you're a Super Bowl contender. Like, you're so sure about the rest of this team that that you're a Super Bowl contender this year. And I'm not as sure as you. How about I'll put it that way. I'm not as sure. Russell Wilson has never been a guy to carry a team with massive numbers. I said this last time when they did the whole we'll let Russ cook. They didn't do real well, okay? When they just let him drop back and throw it 40, 45, 50 times a game, they didn't do well. They did best when they had a really strong running game and a really strong defense, and Russ only had to do what Russ needed to do. He didn't have to carry the whole team on his back. Now, your argument was he doesn't have to carry the team on his back now. But if you're telling me that, like, you were short a quarterback and now you have the guy, you're expecting him to carry a certain amount of the burden here.
Sure.
I mean, it's the most important position. So doesn't mean he stinks. I'm a Russell Wilson fan. I would certainly want him as my quarterback. Any team would be happy to have him as their quarterback. I just think sometimes the narrative gets ahead of the production. And I just don't know that we've seen – I don't want to hear about like he hasn't had weapons. He's had weapons, man. You can't jerk off about DK Metcalf and his speed and body all the time and then say he doesn't have weapons. He's had some weapons there. He's not throwing to nothing. Okay, he's not what the Giants were. Or he wasn't what Houston was, and somehow whatever that fucker about down there, Davis Mills is putting up numbers too. So this is almost more of a, I don't know if it's a prediction. It's kind of a prediction. Like, I think we might find out this year that Russell Wilson's a little overrated. How about that? A little overrated. Just a little overrated. That's all. Not saying he stinks. I think he's really good. I would love him on my team. I'll probably trade Zach Wilson for Russell Wilson, but one Wilson for another. But I'm just saying, I don't think he's Tom Brady. I don't think he's Aaron Rodgers. I don't think he's Josh Allen. I don't think he's Mahomes. I don't know if I go quite that far.
Herbert?
He's not Justin Herbert either. Although Justin Herbert's not the winner that he's been. You just look at him. And you're like,
Stafford?
I would put him in the same class.
I agree.
I'd put him in the same class.
I agree with everything you said there.
So
I can see where you're going with that. I hope you're wrong, obviously. But I can see where you're going with that. And you can make an argument, too, that once the Legion of Boom got a little old in the tooth, Marshawn Lynch went away.
Once he got paid, once you get paid, you need to carry more of the burden. And I'm sorry, he really didn't.
And I know they didn't help him with the line, and I know that their offensive staff has been a little, I think, fired. But listen, but you're right. But a guy that popular and that good, you should step up.
Peyton Manning didn't get to complain about his offense coordinator. Tom Brady didn't have a decent receiver other than Randy Moss for 20 years.
Adam Gase.
So, you know what I'm saying?
I do.
If you're that good, you overcome that stuff.
Yep.
For 15 years, you didn't know who the offensive coordinator of the Packers was. Like, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're that good, you're above that shit. So that's why. Again, I'm not saying he stinks. Don't turn this into Nope, that's not what I'm saying, folks. Not at all. I think he's really good.
My second overrated player, running back. You want to guess?
Overrated?
Yep.
Running back. Nope, I don't.
Christian McCaffrey.
Yes, good call. Very good.
The last 2 years, he's had 1,159 total yards. Total.
Yep.
Eight touchdowns since the contract extension of $64 million. He's been hurt the last 2 years. I think he's missed.
What do they say is the best ability?
Availability.
Availability.
I made the argument before that I think he hurt Sam Darnold by going down. Sam Darnold was off to a pretty good start.
Yeah, they were a different team.
Before that all happened, the wide receivers all of a sudden are more open. The tight ends all of a sudden are more open.
Do you know who the number one rusher in the NFL was the first 3 weeks of the season?
Was it Christian McCaffrey?
It was Sam Darnold. Why?
Was it really?
Yeah, because you had
number one rusher.
Yes,
really.
I think he had the most touchdowns in the NFL, the most rushing touchdowns in the NFL. As of week 3. You could check that out if you want.
Wow.
But why is that?
Yeah.
Because there's so much attention to Christian McCaffrey. I don't think Sam scored another touchdown the rest of the season once McCaffrey went down.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Benched. Yeah. So and like I said before, with Sam Darnold, the pressure is on in Carolina. And if Matt Rule's probably lighting candles and going to church, and hopefully this guy stays healthy for him. So
for sure. Yep, I think that's a good one. If you're not on the field, dude, your talent level doesn't matter. My first underrated player is Kirk Cousins. I think, again, I don't think Kirk Cousins is great. I think Russell Wilson is better than Kirk Cousins, but I think Kirk Cousins, I think he gets a little belittled because the last couple seasons Minnesota hasn't had the record that they should, and frankly, he hasn't been the greatest primetime performer. Okay, we recognize that. But if you just look at him statistically, dude, the guy puts up monster numbers year in and year out. Frankly, the numbers that 30-plus touchdowns, less than 15 interceptions, over 4,000 yards. Oh, by the way, we were just talking about McCaffrey never being able to play. Show me the last time Kirk Cousins missed a game. He's not exactly the biggest quarterback in the NFL, but somehow he doesn't miss games. He's always available, which means Minnesota always has a chance, okay? I just think he gets crushed. And mate, listen, this is the deal, being the quarterback and being the guy who said take that or whatever the hell he said. How do you like that? Or
You like that?
you like that? Yeah, like and getting the big money, being the first guy to get that big guaranteed contract. The pressure comes with that, so that's okay. You're going to have to take that heat. But if you just look at it objectively, the guy puts up big numbers, throws a lot of touchdowns, and doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. So it is what it is, man. Most teams would be happy to have a Kirk Cousins on their team.
Yeah.
You wish, most teams wish they, I'll put it to you this way. Even if they don't want Kirk Cousins, if you just could get a guy that had Kirk Cousins numbers, they would, what are there, 32 teams in the league? There's probably 25 teams that would take that guy. Right,
I was going to say 22.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I'll take 22.
Yeah. Just
think about that. Yeah, think about that, man. So you wouldn't call Kirk Cousins a top 10 quarterback, but yet there's 22 teams in the league that would take his stats as their quarterback.
Yep, I can see that.
Something?
Yeah,
so that's why I think
call.
I think he gets a little crushed unfairly.
Yeah, I know another guy that's had defensive staff as his head coach for a long time.
Yes.
In both spots.
Both. You're correct. You are correct.
My first underrated player, another running back. You want to take a guess?
Underrated running back.
You're going to be shocked by this one in more ways than one.
Go ahead.
That would be Ohio State and Dallas Cowboy Ezekiel Elliott.
Underrated?
And I'll tell you why.
Oh, you're drinking way too much. You started early drinking, didn't you?
I've been killing him for about 2 years.
They should cut him.
Well, the money was standing. I agree with that. However, stat-wise, over 1,000 yards, 4 out of 6 years in the league, and the 1 year he didn't, he had 979. 56 career rushing touchdowns, 12 receiving touchdowns. McCarthy will hurt his career because he wants to throw the ball 60 times a game going forward. But if the Cowboys stick to the run game like they did early on, with him now getting a little older and Tony Pollard, I think they're a better team.
Let me ask you something in your little statistics list over there. Do you happen to have what his yards per carry was last year? Because nobody.
Yeah, it's 4.3. It's actually not that bad.
Was it really?
Yeah, I thought it was gonna hurt my argument. It did not. I thought it was like 3.3.
I would have thought something.
Yeah,
something like around 3.5. Yeah.
It was 4. It was 4. Almost 4.
All right. You put up a decent fight there. I'll leave it alone. I wouldn't want him, and I can't imagine there are too many teams that want him. Well, but certainly at the price
now.
Yeah, certainly at the price. That's a problem. My number 2 most underrated, and it's quarterback, and that would be Lamar Jackson. You just asked me before you led into this for me perfectly. Thank you for asking me who I'd rather have, Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson.
That's what I do.
Listen, think around the NFL, how many teams go a decade or more not having a winning program, and almost exclusively because you don't have a quarterback. I know the Buffalo Bills are really good right now. Before Josh Allen got there, they had gone the longest stretch of any team in the league without making the playoffs. Why? Because they hadn't had a quarterback forever. Okay, basically since, I don't know, fucking Drew Bledsoe was there or something like that. You can name the teams. Cincinnati, go forever, bad organization. Why? Didn't have a great quarterback. Chicago Bears, although somehow they have like this tradition of being great, they're bad for the longest amount of time. At best, they're average. Why? No quarterback.
Cleveland Browns,
perfect example. How many before Baker got there? Now, even if you take, how many quarterbacks did they go through over like a 10-year period? It was something. It was like
there was a stat. Remember Joe Thomas, the All-Pro?
Yeah. How many quarterbacks he played?
Dude, I think it was like fucking 35.
It was something crazy.
In some game, he's introduced himself in the huddle to these guys.
Yeah. So I think Lamar Jackson's underrated in the sense of I don't think you can. While he has some shortcomings, I don't think we appreciate the consistency that brings. I truly believe. Now they didn't win 10 games last year, but that was because Lamar Jackson was hurt. I truly believe he plays a full season. They never, at least watching him play, at least for another 3 to 5 seasons, at the current, style that he has and ability, I just don't see him losing more than 10 games. I mean, winning less than 10 games. And I don't think people understand what that is. The Jets are another team. Like, you go like a decade, you can't make the playoffs because you don't have just that consistent really good player that you can count on week in and week out. I don't know about Lamar Jackson in the playoffs and all that kind of stuff, but on a week in, week out basis, which is what your fan base is really built on a lot of times, okay? Your local fan base is built on week in, week out. The people who come to the stadium is built on what you do week in, week out, not so much the playoffs. They're there for you in the playoffs, of course, and you can gain, bandwagon fans in the playoffs, but you build your fan base locally by winning and being consistent winners week in and week out. And you just look at the Baltimore Ravens. I've said this 1,000 times. When he's there, they are a 7 out of 10 games winner. Like, it just is what it is. It's going to be that way for a while. And I think that part of it is underrated. So, again, you look around the league and you say, would you take a Lamar Jackson over what you have now, especially if you've been mediocre? The answer for most of these teams would be yes. And what's so fascinating about him is that last year he was hurt, but it wasn't because of his running. It was something that happened in the pocket with him staying in the pocket, which was so interesting. So he, for all that he does and all the athleticism that he shows and running the ball and all that stuff, he really doesn't get hurt. That was a really weird, injury that he got. So, I mean, to me, I actually think he's and it's funny because people say, wow, you bash him all the time. No, I just don't think he's a Super Bowl quarterback, but that doesn't mean you can't be a really good quarterback in the NFL. Okay. I don't think Baltimore fans are sad to have him at quarterback, even if they don't think he can win them a Super Bowl. It's great. It's great. Or I should say it must be great as a fan going into, I wouldn't know, going into each week thinking that you have a really good chance of winning that game. I don't know what that's like, So I think that's an underrated talent to give your team a chance to win every single week.
My second underrated player, and I think you're a fan, wide receiver, Chargers, Keenan Allen. Over the last 5 years, over 1,000 yards, 4 to 5 years.
Wow.
This other year, 992. 32 touchdowns in that span. 100 catches every year except one, and that year was 97. This guy is consistent. He's done it with 3 different quarterbacks. Well, at least 2. Rivers and Herbert. Yeah, because Herbert started right year after. Yeah, so 2 quarterbacks. You want to talk about a rookie coming into the league and having a guy like that? That's exactly what you need, man.
Absolutely. Doesn't hurt.
They've had good tight ends to help him out. Running game has been okay. But when he's healthy, man, he is unbelievable. I hate him because he's a Charger, but he's a very good player.
Of course. No, I like that one. Yeah, I like that one. All right, so my 2 overrated were Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson. My 2 underrated were Kirk Cousins and Lamar Jackson.
My 2 overrated were Aaron Rodgers and Christian McCaffrey. My 2 underrated were Zeke Elliott and Keenan Allen.
Nice. Just a reminder, we have our T-shirt giveaway. All you have to do is be a subscriber to the podcast or to the YouTube channel, or both. That'd be nice. And then leave us a comment. Leave us a comment on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, anywhere you like, and you'll be entered into the contest. And you'll get a T-shirt of the team of your choice. Also, if you go on the Anchor app and leave us a voice message, you will get 5 entries. So 1 voice message is 5 entries. Gives you so much better a chance to win, and you get a T-shirt of your favorite team. NBA Finals are upon us, which is the playoffs have been a lot of fun. I have to acknowledge that the playoffs have been a lot of fun. It's been physical, which I like. It's been a lot more physical than the regular season has been. So we have the Golden State Warriors and the Boston Celtics. 2 vastly different teams here. What do you think about how they got here or what we're about to see?
Yeah, Boston beat the Heat in an exciting Game 7 last Friday night. I believe it was last Friday night.
I think you're right.
Jimmy Butler did everything he could to carry the Heat. It just wasn't enough. As we mentioned last week, they had a couple guys banged up.
Yeah.
And it showed. And
that's the only thing that has held these playoffs back as being great is that there's been a couple injuries.
Yeah, I agree.
Untimely injuries.
A couple guys didn't step up to outmount as much as they should have. At the end, Jason Tatum was fantastic. Marcus Smart's been great, although for a 5-minute stretch, he tried to give the game away. The Warriors beat up on the Mavericks as to be expected to get here. My prediction for this is Warriors in 6, and I have Klay Thompson winning the MVP.
Yeah. This is an interesting series to me because both of these teams are coming up against somebody that they haven't really faced previously. So, like,
Mm.
Golden State has faced teams that kind of have that one dude that's a star, and he's kind of got complementary players around him, but there's not like they haven't faced a team that has like multiple like big time stars. You know, Luca was by himself, that kind of thing. So, and on the other side, Boston has kind of, I'll call it a little luck of the Irish here. Each team they've played has either come into the series with injuries or during the series acquired some injuries, and they were still really tough series that went down to the wire. Other than the one with the Nets, of course, they trashed the Nets. So now Boston's coming in against the team that is very healthy, and you have multiple scoring options. And Golden State's coming up against a team that plays exceptional defense and has multiple players that can score and threaten you as opposed to anything that they've faced. So I think it's really interesting what's going forward here. I think Golden State's going to win also. Here's what I think, though. I think the MVP is going to have to be Steph. Now, if Boston were to win the series, I think there's the potential for different players to be MVPs because
Brown, Williams, Tatum, obviously.
you have multiple guys that have very distinct roles, and then you have Tatum and Brown who can dominate at any given time. And for a short series, any one of them could. Whereas to me, if Golden State is going to win the series, Steph has to play really well. And if Steph doesn't play really well for most of the series, they're not going to win.
That's fair.
Like, I just can't see that. So I do think Golden State's going to win. And I think Steph will be the MVP. But it will be interesting. This is Boston is by far the stiffest defense that they're going to face, that they face in this whole series, in this whole playoffs. And we'll see what that does. I don't know. Dallas certainly doesn't play great defense. It's a fascinating matchup because they haven't faced anyone like they're facing. Each of them hasn't faced anyone. Okay, so you think Golden State and Clay is going to be the MVP?
Yes, sir.
All right, I got Golden State, but I think Steph, and I think it has to be Steph.
Yeah, I hear you. I was trying to be a little cute on it.
Yeah,
and Clay's been playing better last couple series. So.
Absolutely. Hey, we're going to cut it off here for today. Don't forget the Jack Nicklaus Memorial is on TV this week, and that's always a fun thing to watch because it just has a feel of of one of the majors, even though it's not. Maybe catch a Yankee game. I think there's a good chance there might be a little Yankee talk next week. We'll see how that goes. We'll see, unless the magic just continues and Sky just wants to stay the hell away from that shit. So 68, my man. How we doing with that? Who do we got?
I got 4 names for you.
All right, better than last week.
The first one, familiar to you, pal, 7-time All-Pro, 8-time Pro Bowler, 2000 All-Decade Team, Hall of Famer, Seahawk, Jet, and Titan center Kevin Mawai.
Very, very good player.
Number 3, 4-time All-Star, war number 68 because he's 6'8". Former Yankee and Met relief pitcher Dellin Betances. Number 2, 3-time Super Bowl champ, 4-time All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowl, 1980s All-Decade, Hall of Fame Washington Redskin lineman Russ Grimm. And number 1, 3-time All-Pro, 12-time Pro Bowl, 2000 All-Decade Team. I hate the fucking prick because he was a rival of mine and a tremendous player. Hall of Fame Chief Guard Will Shields.
Very good. Yes, indeed. For my news of the week here, some of you fans of Las Vegas are not going to be thrilled, but it looked. Oh yeah. One of the biggest industries in Las Vegas is the happy weddings that go on, and a significant number of them.
Happy endings or happy weddings?
Weddings.
What up,
The happy weddings often end in a happy ending, but that's for another time. And a significant portion of those weddings take place as Elvis-themed weddings. But Las Vegas chapels of love that use Elvis Presley's likeness could find themselves becoming heartbreak hotels. It looks like the organization that is in charge of the king, okay, the idea that anything with Elvis is petitioning Vegas to say you can't use the Elvis likenesses anymore.
Really?
So it's literally this. If this happens and it's a cease and desist letter that's been sent to the city of Las Vegas, you're really gonna put a lot of people out of business, because that's kind of like their whole thing is like Elvis themed businesses, which Elvis themed weddings, which I find actually fascinating this day and age, that anybody still gives a shit about Elvis, because he's been dead for like 150 years. But I just thought it was something else to say. For how many years you've had these Elvis themed weddings in Las Vegas, and they very well may be coming to an end. So if you were thinking about it, get there soon before, it goes. You still have your whorehouses, you still have the casinos, you still have all the good stuff, but you won't be able to get married in a in an Elvis themed wedding anymore.
Tony, she was a hooah.
For Scott Bracey, I'm Pete Colasano. You've been listening to Bump and Run, and we'll see you guys next week.
Later.
All right. So interestingly enough, I think my SD card ran out of space. So luckily, I do this on YouTube, so I'll have to pull the audio off YouTube like I did that time. But I probably won't be able to. I'm going to try it tonight. But last time it didn't work on this fucking laptop. So I might have to do it first thing in the morning when I get to school. I'll give it a shot tonight, but worst case scenario, I'll be able to do it first thing in the morning.
Sounds good, bro. Good thing it was a short one.
It just acts slow, and it just is funny. Yeah, I'm gonna have to delete a lot of shit that's on here. It's just, card full. No shit. Yeah, wow. I'll just have to delete some stuff. The audio stuff doesn't really take up a lot of space, but I guess I just haven't deleted anything in a while.
Yeah,
probably since I was in the house. Because I used to do it all. I used to do the deleting all on the other computer, and this one's it's actually working okay now, but it's been crap. So I try to do the least amount I have to on this laptop. Because it just doesn't work great. But actually lately, I don't know what the hell happened, but it's working okay. So worst case scenario, I'll do it in the morning and I'll get the audio off the YouTube, because that.
All right. Yeah, cool. Okay. No problem.
All right, dude. Talk to you later.
Later.